Hey guys, and welcome to this special episode of the Drive Talk podcast. My name is Pete Greaves, and as well as a co-presenter on the Drive Talk podcast, I am an automotive YouTuber going under the name of Petrol Ped.
Hi, I am Joe Achilles, and as well as doing this, I'm also an automotive YouTuber.
And you are Joe Achilles.
Yeah, I just decided to keep my name and make it quite simple and easy. Yeah.
So we're doing this special episode of the Drive Talk podcast, where we want to talk to you about why Michelin is special for us, and also share with you some of the really cool things that we've done with the brand over the years since we've been doing YouTube and the podcast.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Both of us have a big history with Michelin. It'll be great to share our stories and experiences with you guys and talk about all things Michelin.
And before we start, I should probably say we're here at the Porsche Experience Centre in Silverstone, which is supported by Michelin, and we've had the most incredible experience today. So our latest experience we could share with you is what we've been doing today, but maybe we'll do that a bit later on. I thought we start with our first kind of interactions with Michelin as a brand, and I guess for you, mate, it was probably your days when you were younger and fitter and stupid enough to throw yourself down a hill on a mountain bike.
Yeah. Yes. So I used to race mountain bikes, originally cross country, and then downhill mountain biking for years. So for those of you that don't know what that is or aren't familiar with that sport, it's a bit like downhill skiing, but on a mountain bike and with less snow most of the time.
Well, they do that avalanche thing with the
Yeah, so that gets really complicated. And obviously a big part of that is the traction you have, or sometimes you don't have. And a big part of that is the tyre. And I used to run Michelin tyres back in the day, late 90s, early 2000s. In fact, there was a tyre back then that was completely untouchable in wet conditions and muddy conditions. And surprise, surprise, in living in UK and racing.
Did you use that quite a lot, mate?
It was a tyre that I did use a lot. It was called the Wild Gripper. And it was available in green as well, so it was a real standout tyre. That was brilliant. And so they were probably my earliest memories of the Michelin brand, what it stood for. I didn't quite have my first car back then, so it was running rubber on my bicycle back in the day, and then that just progressed into things that I could afford as I grew up and earned a bit more money. And yourself?
Well, it's funny actually. While we're on the bikes, I'm sadly not an ex-downhill mountain biker, but I am a big cyclist, and I run Michelin tyres on both my road bike. So I've got a really high-end Bianchi road bike that runs Michelin Power Road tyres, tubeless ones, and they're I think modern day road bike tyres. They're bigger volume. They have a lower rolling resistance. They're certainly the tyres I run, because they're tubeless, so they're not puncture resistant, but they deal with, I've actually, touched wood, I haven't had a puncture yet on them, and I've had the bike for probably running them for 18 months, I guess. And then I've also got a Trek Rail e-bike, mountain bike, full suspension mountain bike, again with Michelin tubeless tyres on it. And so, I'm out on my bike most weekends with Michelin rubber underneath my bike, but I also obviously run it in on the cars, but we'll come to the cars a bit later. For me, I think the first time I came across Michelin was, I think we had a car with Michelin tyres on, and that's fair enough. But my wife is in hospitality and catering. She's done that for 35 years, and through that, we're very lucky. We've got a network of friends that are, a lot of them, in hospitality and catering, and therefore we get to stay in some very nice hotels and eat in some really nice restaurants. And the Michelin star was something I've been very, very lucky to experience quite a few times. And I think I remember the first time I ate in a Michelin star restaurant, it was a 7-course tasting menu with wine flight, so different wine every serving that came out, and the sommelier would come over and describe why that wine paired with that food. And it just blew me away, really. I think I had this perception of, well, we don't have nouvelle cuisine so much anymore, but where you have these tiny amounts of food and like a pea on a plate with a tiny cube of ham or something.
Yeah.
And it was so far from that. And I think for me, my love of food, I'm a big foodie, as I know you are. But maybe the thing that, I don't know what I was thinking really. I hadn't really joined up the Michelin star and the Michelin tyres thing. I hadn't really realised that they were
the same brand.
The same brand.
Yeah.
Which I don't think I'm the only one, actually.
No.
I think there's a, if you look back at the history of Michelin as a brand, I think they started off in bicycle tyres first of all, and then went into road tyres, I think. And then, you've got the brand and the guide and all that kind of stuff. So,
Yep.
so yeah, any excuse to eat in a Michelin star restaurant is certainly something I enjoy doing. But as a YouTuber, my first experience was my first ever press trip. Was a trip to with Michelin. I met with a couple of guys at a Goodwood revival event, and we got chatting, and I explained about YouTube. I was tiny channel, and I was invited to Ledoux, to the R&D test facility, to experience some tyre testing. And I was quite naive. Not naive, but I didn't really know about the process of testing and everything that went through it. And at the time, it was a campaign that Michelin were trying to get people to realise that you don't need to change your tyres when they get to 3 mil tread depth. You can go down lower than that, and it's still actually a premium tyre, like a Michelin tyre will still operate in dry weather and wet weather conditions better than a budget tyre. And I can remember you've probably been there as well. Yeah. You stand next to the wet weather. I think it was the wet weather braking demonstration that just freaked me out, because they had the same cars but with different types of tyres on. So they had a premium, it was a Michelin tyre, but only, I think, 1.5 mil tread depth, and then a budget tyre, brand new, with full 7 mil tread depth. And they did a wet weather braking test.
Yeah.
And the Michelin tyre won. It was outperforming. It was incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible.
Which is almost impossible to understand, isn't it? Because it's all about expelling water and stuff. Yeah. And when you see a tyre that's at the minimum depth of 1.6 mil, it looks like there just isn't enough room there for the water to disappear. But as you say, and that's something that I think Michelin definitely pride themselves on, and something that they talk about a lot. I've just been out to Sweden with them, and they continue to work on that, preserving the tyre, because your tyre is only new once.
Yeah.
And from that point on, it's being used and it's wearing down, isn't it? And it's all very well a brand new tyre performing extremely well in all of these tests, wet weather, dry weather, whatever, or winter tyres as well, or all season tyres, all of these tyres. It's great when they're new, but if the performance drops away massively as it wears down, then you never really experience its full qualities. But Michelin massively focus on that, and it's really impressive. And watching the testing and stuff that they go through to make sure that their tyres do outperform others and do perform right down to their wear limit is really, really impressive, because it's something they don't need to do, but it's something that they want their customers to have, and the tyre to be safe throughout its life, as opposed to just dropping away.
It's funny, that press trip, actually, if you kind of can join the dots up, so that's where I really started to understand how geeky tyres can be, because I met now a mutual friend of ours, Jonathan Benson, who is one of the premium tyre testers in the world now, I think. He's a renowned tyre tester. And through Jonathan, that's how I met you, because we decided we'd try and do a collaboration. And this is 7 years ago was the first time we met.
Yep.
And now the three of us are all good friends, and we've done lots of things together. But when you really understand, we were in Ivalo in Finland with Michelin at the beginning of the year, and we were looking at a range of different types of all-season tyres and how they performed in snow conditions, and comparing them with the Nordic tyres with the spikes on that aren't legal in the UK, which are just amazing things. Yeah. I remember I got in the car to drive from where we were staying. We were staying in like an igloo, a glass igloo, and we drove to the test facility on Finnish roads in the winter. And they said, you get in and drive. And I think I was driving a Range Rover, and it was on studded tyres, and I'd never driven in Finland before. And everyone just shot off down the road. And I'm like, I've got in my head, my driving in the UK in summer tyres on snow, where you've got no grip whatsoever. And everyone shot off, and I'm not going to be able to keep up with them. It blew my mind. They're just incredible things.
Yeah, when you realise the grip that you've actually got. But it takes a while for your brain to go, no, it's fine. It's going to be okay.
You're not going to die. But then when we tested those all the way through to all-season tyres, and I think for me, as a car YouTuber or just a car fan, it's a really simple thing to say, but you can have the best performance car you like. We're surrounded by them today. We've got two beautiful examples behind us of performance Porsches, a beautiful 718 Spider there, and I think that's my perfect spec 911 there, really a GTS Carrera 4, beautiful, both on Michelin tyres.
Yeah.
But it's only a little bit of black rubber on each corner of that car that connects it to the tarmac.
Yeah.
And you know, the heat conditions, it was interesting. We were driving today, we got to drive some really high performance cars today, GT4 RS, GT3 RS. And they were on Cup 2s, and it was a cold day today. It was like, 4 or 5 degrees.
Yep.
And, you have to you have to be in an operating window of a tyre. And it's only when you start to understand these things, you realise how important tyres are.
Yeah, it's so impressive. And when you can feel all that going on underneath you, as you say, it is the most important part of the car in many ways, because as good a, Porsche make, in my opinion, probably the best sports cars in the world.
Because I have a Porsche, so that's...
You do, and I don't.
I'm
yeah.
pleased you said that.
But they're, if you put a set of budget tyres on them, suddenly that amazing masterpiece of a performance car is no good, because you can't extract the performance. And I think something else that brings it on to the... I wanted to note down here in my notes, talk about OEM manufacturing tyres, because let's use the Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tyre, one of my absolute favourite tyres, brilliant UK tyre. There's the off-the-shelf version of that, and then if you own a Porsche, you've got the NO marked version of that, which I experienced in a 992 911 recently, which completely transformed the car. Far less tyre road noise, really nice handling, took the edge off our, let's face it, fairly average roads in the UK. And then BMW, with BMW, you got the Star Mark and various, others, Audi, all the German brands especially. And the amount of research and development that goes into those tyres. I mean, don't get me wrong, a standard PS4S is amazing, but one that is developed, let's say, for a 911, that's got an engine over the back, all the traction predominantly on the rear wheels, etc. There's completely different loads going through that rear axle than there is in, say, a front-wheel drive hot hatch.
Yeah.
And the development and stuff that they put into those Porsche Mark tyres is just mind-blowing. When you speak to someone like Jonathan Benson and he explains, and you just can't believe it. And yeah, it's
But I see it. You probably see it. I'm in a few Porsche forums on social media sites, and you'll hear people go, it's just a marketing ploy. Yeah. It's just a way of and it's just so not.
No.
And they aren't just, I know, we'll have the same sidewall and we'll put an N there and charge some more money.
Yep.
They're there for a reason, and they're developed for a reason. And I think that for me is, as you learn more about, because everyone thinks they're just a round bit of black rubber on the corner of each corner of your car, and it's just so not the case.
No.
And we both, Joe and I, run Michelin's on our cars. I've got a Mini with Pilot Sport 4, and I've got 4Ss on my Boxster. You've got a combination of 4Ss and Cup 2s, depending on which.
Yeah, Cup 2's on my M2. It's been out of action for a while, so they haven't had anywhere this year.
No.
Because, for those of you that don't know, I have a lovely M2 track car, but I misshifted it earlier this year. So,
but we don't talk about that.
We don't, and it didn't matter that it had the best tyres in the world in it, because they didn't help my inability to shift gear. So yeah, the Cup 2s on that were fresh that morning, and they've done 2 laps around the site, so they're very fresh. So once it gets going, I'm still going to have a new set of tyres. But yeah, Cup 2s on that, and PS4S's star marked on the M3 Touring.
And I think for us, that why we love working with Michelin as a brand with the podcast is we get to, or what we want to try and do is use that partnership to share experiences, but also to share knowledge and transfer knowledge around things. So we went to MotoGP this year at Silverstone, and we did a podcast with the head of two-wheel motorsport for Michelin and talked all about MotoGP tyres.
Yep.
And then that's another level completely. You think car tyres have got a lot of engineering in them. Oh, my days.
I don't actually envy, to do that, because you're putting yourself out there, aren't you?
Yeah.
And the reason I think that someone like Michelin are doing it is because of the research and development they get from these tyres. Because let's face it, all the motorsport stuff, Le Mans, which we'll talk about soon, and endurance racing, N24, all of these amazing Michelin tyres that are on or in motorsports, that technology trickles down into the road cars.
Sure.
And it really, really does trickle down into the road cars. And it is the best way to test something because, you know, a MotoGP bike is going to be putting through a lot more load into a tyre in that tiny contact patch compared to a road superbike will ever be able to, because it's physically impossible. So they're being tested under the most extreme conditions. But the MotoGP thing, that was one of the most fascinating chats. I mean, I'm a big MotoGP fan. I've watched it for years. Obviously, I do try and geek out and understand a bit about tyres, but that was a totally different level, and it made me respect the tyre and the manufacturing behind it so much more.
I think for me, the two bits of that there's the compound of the tyre. So what's the actual rubber compound, whether it's hard or soft or sticky, how it reacts to temperature. I mean, that's the difference between a winter tyre and a summer tyre and an all-season tyre, is they're more malleable at lower temperatures if it's an all-season tyre, right?
Yep.
But on a MotoGP tyre, they've got different compounds around the side of the tyre, so the middle bit of the tyres are harder compound than the edges.
Yeah, asymmetric tyres.
And depending on whether it goes left more or right more, you might even have a harder outside than an harder inside it. It was just unbelievable. And then there's that. So that, you're getting your head around that. And then they start talking about the tread patterns, which are designed to expel water.
Yep.
And I can't remember the number now. It was something ridiculous, like 8 litres of water a second.
Yep.
At a couple of 100 k's an hour on a bike tyre. I can get that on a road tyre because they've got a big wide contact patch.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah. Really,
Unreal.
really fascinating. Yeah, that was a great day. That was a great weekend.
And I mean, the other thing, going back to the Ledoux thing, was I remember they've got the big earth mover tyres outside as well, which are another set of technologies altogether. They're
completely different level. Yeah. And you take that one end and then you go back to your road bike tyre at the other end, and you think, just like you're saying, the lack of punches compared to when I used to ride a lot of road bikes 25 years ago. Mate, every ride you'd go out on, you'd expect to get a puncher, and if you didn't, then you were lucky. Nowadays, that technology's improved. The rubber compound's so good. The rolling resistance, all these things, and the longevity as well. You know, and to combine all that in a bike, I don't know, is that more impressive than a car tyre? It is quite. It's like, you know,
it's the use cases, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then there's the cost, and a bike tyre, I guess you're talking £50, something like that.
Yes.
A tyre, whereas a car tyre is, hundreds of pounds. So
yes. Yeah. It's all relative.
Yeah, exactly.
So obviously that's the tyre side of things, and as with you, I've run Michelin on my cars ever since I had my first car. I can't remember what it was delivered on, but it was always like, I need to get some Michelins on it. And that's continued to this day. And we're very fortunate that, we both work with Michelin now. And, but the other side of things, as you've touched upon, is the food and that experience, the Michelin guide, and experiencing all of that. And I'm very lucky that Pat and I, who's off camera, we've been to Le Mans a couple of times. Did you know I've been to Le Mans?
Yeah, there's a sore point there. I haven't yet. I have been to Le Mans, but pre-YouTube. I was there the year that the Mazda 787B won.
Oh,
wow. Johnny Herbert. That was proper.
When was that?
91.
91.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was cool. But yeah, and I haven't been recently. But hopefully next year. This year I had I was going away with my lovely wife.
Yes.
A weekend to Rome this weekend that Le Mans was on, and chose to carry on my marriage. And
didn't you went to a Michelin star restaurant out there, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So
we did. Yeah. And we got our Michelin fix at a Michelin star restaurant.
Yes. Well, there you go. Yeah, I remember you were posting loads about it, which was great. But yeah, I mean, Le Mans, we especially last year's trip, we used the guide, and we tried a number of random restaurants as well. It was just mind-blowing, experiencing all of that. And as you said earlier on, it wasn't just about the food and the flavors. It was the experience of everything. It was the service in the restaurant. It was the way it's all delivered to you. It was the drinks that were paired up with the food. Yeah. It was so much more than just, there's your food and that's nice.
We did Henda Rose in London, who I think at the time she was 2-star. I think she's 3 Michelin star now.
Yep.
And it was the crockery. Each course came out in different crockery. The silverware, the food was exceptional. The wine was amazing. But then I had cognac afterwards, and they basically, when you ordered this cognac, they asked you your birthday, and you got the cognac from the year of your birth.
No
which
way.
was really cool.
Did they go back that far?
Yeah, yes, I was waiting for that. I was waiting for that. But it was just, it's those types of things. And I think one of the things about the Michelin Guide is I think sometimes people can think Michelin star restaurants are a bit intimidating. They're not cheap to go to.
Yep.
But then I don't think I think it's the whole experience side of things. And you can have something like, I know, the Hand and Flowers, which is a Michelin star pub, which if you've been to that.
I haven't been there.
In Marlow, amazing.
Yep.
Tom Kerridge, really, really lovely. Or you can go right up to really high-end stuff like, I don't know, Hospital Road, Gordon Ramsay or Henda Rose. But in the guide, you've got really nice recommended restaurants that aren't at Michelin star level yet, but if you want to go somewhere really nice, then the Michelin Guide, if you're in a strange town that you've not been to before, or you're going on holiday and you want to explore somewhere and you want to make that a special evening, or then the Michelin Guide's a brilliant way of finding out really nice places to eat that don't have to be Michelin star expensive. They're just really good quality, great food, great reviews.
Yep.
And I don't think people use the guide as much as
they should.
I don't know whether it's as well known as it should be, really.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I've only just started, as of last year, with the Le Mans trip, started using it. And if there's anything that's recommended near by where I'm going on road trips and stuff, then it's always worth it because, I haven't had a bad one yet. So.
Yeah, I mean, you can use the guide, even if you're using, there's lots of different websites, but TripAdvisor will star what are Michelin Guide restaurants. So for me, they're always the first ones I look at.
Okay. I didn't know that.
And then there's, the other one that just from the stars point of view, I went on an event earlier this year with Michelin, and they partner with a bike company called LeBlanc Tours, and they do kind of curated bike tours, but always around really nice food and really nice drink.
Yeah.
And we went to one of the first restaurants to get a green star, which is all about sustainability. It's called Silo in London.
Yep.
And it's a restaurant without a bin.
Right.
So they have no waste, or they minimise the waste as much as possible. They either, the worst case, they compost some stuff. So obviously you can't reuse food that hasn't been eaten, so that will be composted. But all the supplies they try and get in without any packaging on them.
Wow.
They try and grow as much stuff. They source a lot of stuff really locally, so there's not lots of food miles.
Yep.
The biggest problem they've got is wine comes in boxes, but they try and use reusable boxes for their suppliers. So rather than packaging up in plastic, they'll take out reusable containers and stuff. It was amazing, absolutely fascinating to talk to the chef and watch the brigade make the food and the ethos. I mean, it's no undertaking, no mean undertaking to say we're going to get rid of the bin in a kitchen. But for me, that's the kind of thing that Michelin are in as well. We're trying to push boundaries and change behaviours and make people think about stuff. And that event, there was a whole bunch of really renowned chefs who went to that experience to basically understand how Silo were working. And it was all organised by Michelin and Le Bon. And it was really, really interesting.
Yeah, well, that's what it all comes down. We all know that buzzword at the moment is sustainability.
Yeah.
But and it's super important, especially if you're actually doing something to make it genuinely more sustainable. With examples like that, or examples like we talked about with the tyre, the longevity of it, the fact that it works for longer, and so hopefully you're going to keep it on your car for longer and get more miles out of it. And I think it's just it's really really important for brands as big as Michelin to focus on that, but actually to do something that you can see the end result in. You can actually see a difference in. You can see a change. It's not just them using the word as a marketing term, which so many people do.
I mean, there's a lot of talk at the moment about cars getting heavier with EVs and increasing tyre wear and so on. But actually, if you look at the work Michelin are doing in that space for tyres, reducing particulate emissions from their tyres and that kind of thing, and they're leading the way. And that, again, it's part of that for me, our job to help share and spread that story. And we go on trips. The trip to Finland we went on at the beginning of this year, that was a trip all around, not just the one thing, tyres. It was about tyres and food and sustainability and the products that they were using and where they sourced those products from and
bring it all together.
When we were with at the MotoGP, they were talking about the sustainability of the tyres, making them, recycling the materials and all that kind of stuff. So there's a really big story to tell. So we've been asked to kind of chat and share our experiences. We could probably talk to you for like hours and hours about all the different things. But you know, when you look at a car and you see it's got Michelin tires on it, I think you know it's a quality product and it's going to do well. But I think you need to look beyond that brand. Good old Bibendum.
Yes.
And you know, he gets his fingers in lots of different pies, and it's a fascinating company.
I mean, Bibendum is one of the most recognisable things in the planet, isn't it? For all age groups.
But I think lots of people don't know his name, so everyone knows him as the Michelin Man.
Yes.
And I think he was. If you look back, wasn't he a guy because it looked like in the tubes and stuff around.
Yeah. I mean, he has changed over the years,
Yes.
and in fact, something else that I'd love to talk about. It was the Le Mans trip last year. Well, Pat and I did. This is actually quite a good story and anecdote. So Pat and I did a long-range trip last summer in a BMW 7 Series, so a big luxury barge. As we know, diesel cars are being faded out or phased out, but this particular car with its big tank had a massive range, and so in my head I was like, right, let's. I reckon it's going to do over 1,000 miles. Where's 1,000 miles away from London? Madrid. I think it was almost exactly 1,000 miles. So we set off at like 4 a.m. and we did this trip. Now, in order to make the car or that trip possible, and in order to make everything as efficient as possible, we weren't going to cheat by taping up panel gaps and all the rest of it. We wanted it to be a production-ready car, but we wanted to optimize the rolling resistance because that's one thing that you can improve on a car. So we got the Michelin E-Primacy tyre, which up to that point, even me, Michelin fanboy, I thought the E stood for EV or electric vehicles or whatever, but it actually stands for efficiency. And its main job is to be as efficient as possible, so low rolling resistance. So that was really impressive. We absolutely smashed it. I think we got there 1,000 miles. We still had 120 miles in the tank left. So
I still think that's one of the most incredible things you've done, and the coolest video you've ever made.
It was a cool experience. It was very hard.
Because what you're not saying is you actually bought the car specifically to make that video.
Yeah, that was a risk with a used 7 Series. Yeah, thankfully didn't lose any money on it, or not much. But it's worth checking out if you're interested in that video. But so on the way back up to Le Mans, we stopped at Clermont-Ferrand and we visited the Michelin Museum, which is definitely worth seeing, whether you're an employee or not.
Incredible place.
It's really, really cool. And out the front of that, it's got that massive tyre, earth-moving tyre. And but when you go in there and you see all the variations and generations of Bibendum, it's quite fascinating because there's just so many different ones. Yeah. And some
of them look a bit spooky, don't you think? He went through a kind of spooky alien phase, and then kind of got to a cuddly squidgy phase.
Definitely a lot friendlier these days. Yeah.
It's like, ooh, it looks really scary. It looks like a crash test dummy at some point. It's almost just like been wrapped in this kind of blow up, anti-crash suit.
Yeah, I definitely prefer the modern day Bibendum. But it's just something that we can all relate to, and on different levels. But it's a great brand, and I'm really proud to be a Michelin brand ambassador. It's no hardship.
You haven't mentioned that you've been a global brand ambassador for like a couple of years, which is incredible, and you do some really cool stuff.
It is, yeah. I mean, I remember when Michelin reached out a few years ago and offered me some help with my tyres for my track day cars, which was a massive step for me. It was amazing. And I think being a brand ambassador for a brand like Michelin that I absolutely love, it's no hardship because everything they do and everything they make, as we talked about, is just brilliant. So I'm very proud to say that I am. It's definitely something that I'll usually say if someone asks me what I do and who do I work with. That's the first thing I'll always say, because it's a brand that everyone knows, and it's a brand that where we can all be very proud of. Talking about working with the podcast.
Yeah, so I guess that's really what Michelin means to us. Is we're very proud as a podcast to be working with Michelin, and individually we could wax lyrical about them for hours and hours.
Yep.
So it's been a real privilege to be asked to make this special episode of the Drive Talk podcast for Michelin. and I'd love to find out what you think as a brand, and what your memories and what your thoughts are. What does it mean to a brand? To you as a brand, rather. But for now, should we wrap up?
We should, yeah. If you want to hear more of this, then obviously tune in to the Drive Talk podcast.
Yeah.
Because we've filmed close to 20 episodes now.
Yeah. Just search Drive Talk podcast on YouTube or on any audio podcast platform, and you will find us. Hopefully, we'll see you on one of those episodes. But take care. Drive safe.